Hi, this is Caitlin.
This is Gabry.
And this is AvengeGirls and Friends. I forgot again.
This is what I have to deal with.
I know.
And this is also Casey.
Hi, I'm Casey.
He's here with us today. I don't think we have a role for him necessarily, but he's important, so he's here.
Yes. As in, you don't have a character assigned to you.
Yeah. Not like you have a role, not a character.
Yeah.
And we will also be kind of digitally joined by Amanda later today. We're going to sprinkle her in throughout. I'm going to edit her, and she sent us a very nice long recording on time, unlike Colton. So editing this will be a lot easier.
This is Civil War, and he is Iron Man, and I am throwing him under the bus.
I don't know if he has been catching up on this, but I hope he listens to this and is like, well, I deserve that.
Either that or he'll just never listen to it again.
That's true.
Because you know how he is. Anyway, yes, Today we're talking about Captain America Civil War, which is actually a fake Avengers movie.
It is basically Avengers 3 and Infinity War is Avengers 4, so Endgame is Avengers 5.
Basically.
Because this is, and it's like, okay, this is an aside. I wasn't even going to talk about this a lot, but they like shoehorn in characters who don't need to be shoehorned in.
Well, that's the thing. I was actually going to say, like, not to go out of order with what Amanda said.
Hey guys, this is Amanda. I am currently recording in the parking lot of a Bruegger's and Jamba in Iowa City. So if you hear any weird, like, ambient noise, it's probably my car just kind of doing its thing. I got a blueberry bagel with honey walnut cream cheese, in case you're wondering. The problem with this movie is that there's a lot of foundation laying, and it kind of keeps missing the point. So there's all this Black Panther stuff, there's some Ant-Man stuff, some Spider-Man stuff, a lot of Avengers stuff, a whole lot of Winter Soldier stuff, and it's easy to lose focus.
Amanda had said something about, like, it's hard to focus because there are so many characters on. Like, it was like a test run for Infinity War. They wanted to see how many characters they could follow at once.
You're 100% right.
And it was too many.
It doesn't, like, Spider-Man doesn't make sense. Okay, I can understand Ant-Man kind of, right? Like, his motivations don't make sense because it doesn't match with what his movie is about. Like, right. Hey, daughter, guess what? I'm going to give you up because I love Captain America. He needs me. Like, that sounds like bullshit. But,
yeah.
Spider-Man doesn't make sense at all. Like, why is Tony suddenly like, you know what I got to do? I got to recruit this, like, how old is he? I don't know, 15, 16-year-old boy?
Yeah.
Like,
I
what?
Think of an in-movie reason. I can only think of, this is going to be great for, like, Spider-Man Homecoming.
Literally, that's all it is.
That's all I can think.
That had actually confused me because I hadn't realized that this came out before Spider-Man Homecoming. Like, I just forgot. And I was like, wait, they don't know who they have to introduce him still. I was like, this is weird. Like, it would have made more sense if they had done Homecoming first, because, like, at least you would know them already. Like, listen, you're gonna go with Tony Stark just because Tony Stark told you to. Like, you literally have no.
Yeah.
Well, he does have a stake in it because he has these abilities and stuff. But, like, this is not your fight.
Definitely
not his fight at all.
Reason why they had that scene, like, with, Spider-Man holding Cap's shield.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
They were like, we gotta show this because it's cool. Here you go. It's so frustrating. Because the rest of the movie is not, the rest of the movie is kind of frustrating too, actually. So maybe I can't say that. I was going to say, the rest of the movie's fine. But we'll get to that. But that's specific. Just Spider-Man is specific, is like, so whatever. I can make excuses for everyone else. Spider-Man makes no sense. That's a child. Tony, what are you doing?
I had that same thought. I was like, is this like, I think Casey argued with me about whether or not ethical was the right word, but I was like, is it ethical to, like, get like a minor involved in this? Is it morally speaking, like, should you
Nope.
do this?
Personally, I don't think that's good. I don't think that's smart of him. I mean, he basically, like, Tony, when I say he, I mean Tony. He basically did that just to be like, okay, I gotta have someone else on my team because so far Cap is winning this custody battle and I need more players. So I'm adopting a child. Yeah. God. Anyways, I wasn't gonna jump to that right away, but
there we are.
I kind of had to.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Anyways, what was Amanda saying?
One of her first thing was superheroes are supposed to save the world and not destroy it.
The main thing that I remembered from the first time watching it, which was when it first came out, is that I was really stressed out by, like, all the fights and all the destruction and all of this bad shit just happening all over the place. Like, the Avengers really go worldwide with their destruction in this movie. And so that was kind of hard for me to handle when I first saw it, because they're these superheroes and they're not supposed to ruin things, you know? Like, they're supposed to save the world. But I think that's part of what is so good about this movie and actually this franchise, because they do show the consequences. Like, in Iron Man 3, we see Tony having PTSD. And in this movie, we see the entire world pretty much being pissed at the Avengers because they keep ruining everything. And so it's interesting to see a movie focusing on kind of fixing the things that they have done wrong. Like, yes, they have done a whole lot of good, but also they, like, broke a lot of shit. And that's just not great.
I find ironic because I will bring up once again one of my favorite internet posts. I can't remember if it's an article or an infographic or something, but it's a breakdown of the level of destruction in superhero movies. Right? There's so much.
Yeah. And I think I know what you're talking about. And if I remember correctly, the Avengers actually do significantly less damage than other superhero teams. So that's saying something.
Compared to DC. And it was because they had the perimeter in the first Avengers movie. They kept it confined to a specific area. But yeah, like, Man of Steel leveled Chicago. It is
completely destroyed. Goodbye. And to be fair, I mean, I know the whole, like, basis of this movie is, like, the Avengers, they kind of destroyed Sokovia. It wasn't really their fault, except it was Tony's fault. But anyways, they destroyed Sokovia, right? And that's bad, and that's the whole basis of this movie. But at the same time, it was like Sokovia and surrounding areas, and they saved a lot of the people. Like, even that movie, they go to great lengths to show them, like, taking care of people and saving them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The problem there was that, like, Ultron is, like, partly Tony's creation.
Yeah. Slide the computer towards him.
Yeah. I want to make sure he's awful.
Well, that's, like, more directly their fault.
That's true. Yeah, because Tony and Bruce. You can't just leave Bruce out of it, I guess, right?
That's true.
Yeah, so Tony and Bruce did it.
Why Tony is pushing for it so much, because he actually for once recognizes that he's actually to blame for something, because there's no denying that, and he's really good at justifying it otherwise.
It's true. And I kind of had that's like the woman who she comes to him after that university speech or whatever, I forget what college it is. Yeah, the presentation, and she's like, you basically killed my son and I'm upset at you, so I'm going to say mean things to you. And I think that is kind of like the thing that Tony needs to sign the accords. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I think the accords would have happened regardless, and I think Tony probably would have signed regardless, but that's the kicker. Like, when they bring up the accords for the first time, Tony is in such a negative place because he's feeling so guilty over what this woman has said. And so he doesn't even need to think about it. I feel like if that woman hadn't come to him, and if we could talk about this in more detail later, if Sharon hadn't said what Peggy had said it for her eulogy, the words like, like stick to the man, basically. I think they could have talked it out. I honestly do. I don't think it would have happened the way it happens in the movie. Also, if you ignore Zemo, but
yeah, because that's like a whole like parallel plot line, basically.
Yeah.
But you said they needed a negotiator.
They need one person in the entire Avengers. Anyone. Or outside Avengers.
I agree.
Who's like vaguely diplomatic.
Who will just make it down and be like, okay, you're going to talk to each other now because we can't handle this.
Because like Cap was like vaguely receptive.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
He was.
Like to sign the Accords. And then Tony's like, no, I'm going to ram it down your throat. And then
Yeah,
like, you can't make Steve do things like that. He just will not do it.
And I think it's like funny too because like Tony almost had him. I think this is the moment you're talking about. And then Tony was like, "Oh, also I like imprisoned Wanda."
Oh yeah, like, what is with that though?
By the way.
Yeah, and then Steve's like, "What the fuck?" Which is fair because she is a kid. Like, she's literally a child, and I mean, what was she supposed to do? Like, let Captain America die? Like, she didn't purposely kill those people.
I think, like, and it wasn't even. She was trying. It looked like she was trying to fling him like straight up, and it just like veered off course.
And she lost control a little bit.
Yeah.
So that makes the Sokovia Accords understandable. Like, yeah, you should probably like, I don't know, sanction these things a bit more. But to completely like put the blame on her and treat her like a criminal, that's a bit. She is a child and she's still learning her powers and she feels guilty already. Like,
yeah,
you need to calm down, Tony, and everyone else.
It was also already in the middle of a big marketplace with a lot of people.
That's a lot of stress. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's already a lot of people around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, that's a good point because if she hadn't done that, people still would have died. It would have been Captain America plus like everyone else in the area. Like, there would have been casualties regardless.
Yeah.
Also, I think what you were saying about negotiator earlier, Casey, I literally think that's why both Bruce and Thor couldn't have been in this movie because they're the only smart, like, sane people in the room.
I was actually thinking about Banner.
Yeah, they 100% would have been like, y'all, shut the fuck up. Why are you arguing over this? This is a clear solution. It's to sign the Accords and fix everything else later. Like, come on.
I have a lot of feelings about Daniel Bruhl. I think he's a beautiful, beautiful man. He was a German captain in the movie Joyeux Noël, which is a fantastic movie, and if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. And he speaks, like, a bunch of languages, and he has this lovely, soft-spoken way about him, and he's, like, kind of amorphously European. Like, he, I think, is German, maybe Belgian, but he can do, like, anything. He's just great. And so the fact that he's, like, playing the bad guy is a little tricky for me because automatically, like, I just love him. I think he's wonderful, and I'm kind of Team Zemo, which is not great to admit. I am very conflicted on him as this bad guy because he's just wonderful. And he has actually, like, a reasonable motivation. And it's really sad and really awful.
I also love Daniel Bruhl. And I would like to confirm, or not confirm, what's the word? Someone help me out.
Thirsting?
No, like, not to confirm, but to say definitively that he's German. What's the word?
No,
like,
confirm.
Confirm is okay? Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a better word for that. Confirm makes me feel like I went out and researched it and was like, yes, he is German, confirmed. But like,
you know that.
But I know that he's German, yeah.
You can confirm it like that.
I Caitlin, confirm Amanda's point that he is possibly German. He is definitely German. He has a bunch of great German movies that I wish more people would know about because they're actually good movies. He's great. He's great in this. And Amanda, I forget how she phrased it, like a reasonable motivation. Like Zemo has a reasonable motivation for doing all this, and I 100% agree. And like if my family were killed and I wanted to get revenge, it would be in this way, like it would be in a very passive, like understated way.
Like they're gonna do the work for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Like not at all me going out and doing it. It would be, I have this mastermind plan. If I was smart, I don't think I'm that smart to pull off something like that. But like that's the ideal way for me to get revenge. Maybe that's weird to admit or bad to admit, but it's true. I understand where he's coming from, kind of. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say at the very least, I think that's like a really humanizing motivation. So
yeah. He's like a good villain, and he is also the only villain that has like actually won. If you think about it, like, I mean,
you definitely succeeded in dividing them at the very least. They didn't kill each other, but the team is dead.
Yeah,
it was before.
And that's kind of, I mean, he, like, his whole thing was, like you said, like, he wanted them to kill each other, but he seemed, like, super happy with everything and how it came out in the end, so I don't know, I would give the win to him.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess you could kind of argue that, like, Thanos technically wins in Infinity War, but we know that he's not for a long run, so, like, yeah. Daniel Bruhl's the only one who has won. Not Zemo, Daniel Bruhl.
Not Zemo. All right.
His name's Daniel Bruhl now.
So I was very bothered by Peggy Carter's funeral. Like, it kind of seems like a crappy way to kill her off. I understand, of course, that she was in her 90s, but her death kind of only serves as a plot point to force Steve Rogers to think more about these accords and how he wants to deal with them, and in the end it really just pushes him further to the protecting Bucky side. And I don't like Peggy's death being a tool like that. I mean, it wasn't even subtle with Sharon giving the eulogy and talking about how Peggy was like, do the right thing. So, it annoyed me. I wouldn't call it fridging, maybe, but, mini fridge, maybe? That seems kind of right to me.
So we should talk about how Peggy is basically, as Amanda put it, mini fridge, which I think is a really funny term, but it's true. Like, mini fridge as in basically fridged, a woman is being killed to further the man's plot or emotional state or character development or whatever, to further the man. But in a mini way, because she's 90 and I don't know. Feel like most people wouldn't think of that as fridging because she is so old and it's just like, natural death. But it's definitely fridging, right? Or am I wrong?
Consider the circumstances.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a huge part of fridging is it depends on context.
True. But they had to kill her off for the plot. Or for Steve's plot.
Specifically so Sharon could quote her at her funeral.
And so they can no homo everything later by having Steve and Sharon get together. That's literally the only reason, in my opinion, why they have that kiss, because it doesn't make sense otherwise.
I think that's true. You said you didn't even remember it.
Yeah. I mean, it just happened so quickly.
With that
and it doesn't matter too, right? Like
I just blocked it out of my mind.
Me too.
So happening already. I was just like,
it's not actually important, and it's not.
It's not, because it never comes up again.
But I will say, I think we all treated Sharon unfairly.
I agree, because she's actually really great.
I was not bothered by her as much this viewing as I was the very first time I saw it. I still think that the romance is super forced and unnecessary, but as a person, she's super cool.
Yeah.
She gets a lot of trouble for helping them, but listen, she is a Carter and she knows what she's doing.
Yep. She's morally good. She's incredibly smart. She wants to do the right thing. I feel like the kiss almost implies like she wants to do the right thing because Steve. But no, she's just like that's just who she is as a character. She like continually, even in Winter Soldier, is just trying to be the best person she can be, even if it's going against her superiors or the government itself, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's so good. And she's the one who figures out initially that like something is up with Zemo. She's like, the only reason I forget how she phrased it. Like the only reason why this would have happened is so we could capture Bucky, and that's
it would guarantee that we captured him and not anyone else. Yeah,
and then you could see in her eyes she like figures it out as soon as like Steve does, and it's like she's good. Where would you be without her, Steven? Fuck you.
Wow. Okay.
Well, not fuck Steve, but like I feel like you said, like everyone hated her a lot when this came out, and I think it was just a really ripe dose of misogyny there because we were all upset with the Steve Sharon, and we just didn't like her because of that. But in retrospect, she's really great.
She can join our fake Avengers team.
Yes, agree. Do we have someone for Sharon? We should have someone for Sharon.
We should.
She's amazing.
We'll discuss.
Yeah. Who's Amanda?
That's a good question. Amanda, you can be Sharon.
Amanda, if you want to be Sharon, you can be Sharon. I feel like that's fair. She kind of looks like Sharon. She gives me Sharon vibes.
Totally.
Yeah.
I basically want an entire movie or novel, whatever, of Bucky just like trying to do normal human things and like sort of failing at it. So the scene of him like speaking Romanian and buying plums at the market is so wonderful. I kind of have like this little scene in my head where he just finished reading some Carlos Williams poetry, and he's like, you know what I need? Some plums to put in my damn icebox. But, you know, he would get really lonely because nobody else is there to eat the plums, and then it's a whole thing. And anyways, that's my like fantasy for this movie. Like, I just want Bucky to have fun and like do cute normal things, like go shoe shopping. I would be so here for that.
Oh, I like how I was just reading through your notes that both you and Amanda made Carlos Williams references.
I know. Listen, as soon as I saw the plums, I was like, oh no.
I didn't even realize they were plums because I'm a dumbass. So, but then as soon as I heard Amanda make the plum icebox connection, I was like, ha ha ha. And then I wrote a whole poem.
I know, it was good.
Thank you.
We should post it with.
We should post. That's a good. Yeah. No one has eaten the plums that were in the icebox.
He didn't get to eat them.
Poor Bucky. But I do want to see like more just like normal Bucky doing shit. Like I feel like, you know, in the Bucky Falcon TV show that they're supposedly making.
What?
Like, yeah, did you not know about that?
No.
Yeah, they're making a Bucky and Falcon TV show. Or I guess Bucky and Sam Wilson, because in theory one of them could be Captain America depending on what happens in Endgame. But
I feel like what it sounds like we're looking for here is like what Wanda was saying about everyone living in the same building. But what we're basically looking for is like, what's that show?
Friends.
No, not Friends. It's a reality TV show where everyone's living in the same house.
Oh, Big Brother?
I mean, it almost sounds like that.
Is that what it's called? I don't watch reality.
I think that is.
I think it is.
I think what we're looking for is Big Brother's like event edition.
Avengers Big, yeah. Okay, that would actually be
Big Brother is the
funny.
Sokovia Accords.
I would, if I had money, which I don't, but if I had money, I would be like, Marvel, I will pay you to do one episode of Avengers Big Brother. Like filmed like Big Brother style or like Office style, you know, where like shit happens, but then you see them later in the same clothes and they're like giving an interview. Yes. Like this, like that'd be so funny. And people would eat it up. They'd have a new hit on their hands.
I think you're right.
Marvel, once again, hire us because we know what the people want.
Steve Rogers is being a really shitty friend to everybody except Bucky. Like, I can see where he's coming from, but it's not great. Like, he really needs to work on his people skills.
That's true. And I don't know if it's...
Admit it, but yes.
It's like, is that like... I want to talk about, is that like out of character for him? Or, you know, like, is he just badly written in this specific movie? Or is that just who Steve is? Like, he loves his friends and he's very loyal to his team, but Bucky will always take precedence because that's just like, it's his best friend, it's his brother, right? Or lover, whatever you want to say.
Like, literally, I mean, I think Steve is the one who actually says it best. Like, he says, even when I had nothing, I had Bucky. Like, that is the relationship that takes like all precedence in his life.
That's true. That's a good way to put it.
So the fact that he lost him and then kind of knew he was there but still didn't have him back. Yeah, I can see how he would go to any lengths for that.
Yeah, to protect him.
Is literally no one else understands. The thing about, like, I know they make references to it a lot, but like, it is very easy with Steve, especially in the later movies, to forget that like this is not his era. Like, this is not he was born. He was not born at the same time like Tony was.
Yeah. Bucky's the only one who understands. Yeah. That's true. And I feel like, well, I was going to say it makes sense that he would, you know, try to protect Bucky at all lengths because Bucky's like almost constantly under attack throughout the entire movie. And it's not his fault. He's been brainwashed, etc. But at first, though, like when Steve is like arrested and there's that whole scene and Black Panther is chasing him and then they do get arrested and I think it's War Machine Rhodey who's like, congrats Cap, you're a criminal now or whatever. That whole thing, I feel like that could have been avoided or done differently if Steve had been in the right frame of mind. But he was just so like, Bucky. Like, I have to protect Bucky.
That's probably true.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking is just like, even though it is like totally involuntary, like the being controlled because of his like prior training, he does a lot of damage. He kills a lot of innocent people when that happens.
That's true.
Like him like being frozen until I can like deal with that later.
Yeah.
That's the right call.
Do we need to put Bucky on the chart? Bucky shoots up to stop being so self-sacrificing.
That's true.
Because
are we putting Bucky on the chart?
I don't know if we have, but like I think you could make the argument here that he is the most self-sacrificing in this movie because he's willing to take himself out of it totally.
That's
like,
true.
Completely. Would you agree that even Tony wouldn't do?
Yeah. That's true. I feel like Tony would never do what Bucky did at the end of this movie.
No.
I mean, he literally never would do it because he tried to at the end of Iron Man 3 by like icing his suits, aka like destroying them, but then he's back in the game by Age of Ultron.
He went right back to it.
Like immediately. So that's a damn good point. Okay, yeah, I feel like we should put Bucky on the chart, and also if we're doing that, we should definitely put like Wanda and Pietro for one movie. It's fine. Do we put Vision on?
No, Vision sucks.
Fuck Vision.
I guess this is related to what we were saying earlier about, you know, Steve and Bucky being from the same time period and everything. Yeah. And people not recognizing that. And like, I was kind of thinking of that when Tony gives him the particular pens or whatever that are from like World War II, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it's like, without those pens, you wouldn't be here. I'm like, okay, but did you stop to think that maybe he doesn't want to be here? Like, you're assuming that he, like, if Steve had that sense of duty, he's like, okay, I got to do this because, you know, like, it's my duty as a citizen and everything. But, like, if they hadn't entered the war, like, do you think he would have really wanted to do it? I don't know.
That is super true. Like, I feel like on one hand, like, war and fighting gives Steve purpose. I feel like that's an overarching, like, that character trait of his, But if you do take the war away from him, I'm sure, like, he would have, like, if the war never happened in the first place, like, he would have found something else to do with himself, obviously. Like, he doesn't exist in a war vacuum. What was that?
He would have gone to art college like he was supposed to.
Yes.
Wait, what?
That's a great example. He apparently, according to, well, also in the comics, I think, but on his, like, file that you briefly see a glimpse of in the first Avengers movie, you see that he went to art school for like a couple months and then dropped out to go to war, or maybe he couldn't afford it. I think it's kind of left up in the air. But so a lot of fandom is like, oh, Steve can draw really well, which is true, I think, because you actually do see him drawing in Avengers.
He draws a monkey.
Yeah.
In first Avenger, he's drawing
That's
like
true.
a monkey on like a thing, and I'm like, oh, that's
he draws the monkey. And then he draws the Avenger, or I guess at that time the Stark Tower in the first Avengers movie. So we see him drawing twice and then like never again. Yeah, but I love that. I like. I would love to see that. Like, I mean, we were talking about the war and Steve's purpose, but I would just love to see him draw more. I feel like if he doesn't die in Endgame, I want him to retire happily and like just paint like Bob Ross or something. You know what I mean? Like, just let him relax and paint for a living. Let him be okay. It's what he deserves.
True.
Oh, okay. My sister pointed out, sometimes she notices more than I do, but she pointed out that, and you see this technology in use at the airport battle, that like Tony, sometime after Age of Ultron, made like something that specifically hurts Wanda to stop her from using her powers. And it's in his suit and War Machine's suit. And yeah, and I forget who uses it. I think it might be actually War Machine that uses it in the airport battle, but it like makes her, she like goes like, ah, and it holds her head, and there's like, you know, distorted sound waves, it kind of looks like around her visually.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And she's in like great pain. And it just, that like made me mad. Like, I understand maybe creating that technology because Tony as a character, you know, gets PTSD from things often in this line of work. Understandable. He wanted to kind of... Exactly. He creates solutions to protect himself and the ones he loves. We know that from like all of his movies and his character arc. But then to actually like go ahead and use that against... I'm pretty sure she's like 16, 17 or supposed to be in these movies. Like, they make it pretty clear, or at least Steve makes it pretty clear in Age of Ultron and Civil War, that like they're kids, aka not 18.
As a kid. I don't know if that's because she's actually supposed to be a minor, or if it's because like in comparison to the rest of them, they're
that's
like
true.
super young. But
I mean, she is, but also like, isn't she like one? I feel like she's like one of the strongest, like in terms of her actual.
Oh yeah, powers. That's true. She is.
So like, yeah, she's a child, but also like
checks and balances.
She's basically a walking nuke. So,
that's
like,
true.
Comparison. So like, I don't know how much we can treat that with kid gloves.
True.
And, having a countermeasure for a nuke.
That's true. When you put it that way, you might need to have some kind of measure. And I think that'd be interesting to look at that like through like as almost like a microcosm of like the bigger things at play in this movie, like Steve's approach to Wanda versus Tony's approach to Wanda. Mm-hmm. I think you can extrapolate from that. Like, that's basically what this movie is about. If you like really want to get down to it,
it's human versus weapon.
Yes, exactly.
Steve sees her as a person.
Yeah.
Tony sees her as a weapon, and those are also the positions on the Accords.
Yes, exactly.
Brilliant.
Bam.
All right.
We are so good at what we do. We're coming up with this on the fly. Thanks, Casey.
What did Steve say to Wanda? I forget.
Which part?
When?
He says a couple cute things.
I just, as opposed to what Tony said. I don't know what part specifically, but
I don't really know if Tony like ever directly talks to her.
He just puts her in like prison, basically. Yeah. The part that I always think about is, I think I kind of mentioned this earlier, is the moment where like Tony basically has Steve about to sign, And then Tony's like, oh, I locked Wanda up because she's a danger to everyone. And then Tony's like, or Steve is like, God, she's just a kid, Tony. Like, you can't just do that without talking to her or without talking to us.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the moment that I think of.
That's where he loses them. Yeah.
That's where he finally is like, no.
I wasn't thinking of that, but yeah. Tony.
Yeah. Again, you said earlier, Casey, they need a negotiator. Tony can't just do things, and neither can Steve.
Oh, yeah.
But they're doing them anyway, so.
Maybe they need oversight. Oh, did you just change my mind? Psych, you did not, but still. No.
Bam. Psych, but still. Let's see. I think that's actually the only other thing that I had on my list. Oh, other than, I wrote this down. I didn't bold it because it wasn't that important. But the Hawkeye line where he's like, I retired for 5 minutes and it all went to shit. That is 100% Eric. Like, very Eric vibes.
That is accurate. Eric's the only actual adult, and he continues to be.
Yeah. And if he leaves us alone for 1 second, everyone goes into chaos.
It's true. I didn't have anything else important to talk about. I think my only other things were Ross is probably a pretty common last name, but like, is Martin Freeman Ross related to Secretary of State Ross? Because like,
apparently he's not, but it bothers me that they couldn't have chosen another fucking name.
Literally picked anything
like,
else. That's upsetting. Okay.
Makes no sense. Also, since we've mentioned the name Ross, I think I've mentioned this in a past episode, probably the Incredible Hulk episode, but it pisses me off that Tony knowing full well what Ross did to Bruce, and Bruce is one of his apparently best friends, but he's still like, you know who I'm going to work with really closely? Ross. Like,
I guess I was just going to say, like, does Bruce know?
I don't think he knows to this day.
That sucks. That's on the same level as... Is that on the same level as Steve knowing that Bucky killed Tony's parents? Like,
it is!
Such a hypocrite. I hate him so much. Okay.
It literally is, in my opinion, at least.
Okay.
Casey's like, I guess, whatever. Don't know what they're talking about.
Bothers me.
But no, I think you're right, because even in Infinity War, like, there's that like hologram of Ross that Rhodey is talking to, and then Steve comes in and they kind of have words, and Rhodey hangs up on him. But Bruce is there the entire time, and he's hiding because he doesn't want to talk to Ross. I think that's the implication. Like, he only comes out after Ross is gone.
I just forget what Ross actually did before.
Okay, so in the Incredible Hulk, Ross is one of the people who basically like is the reason why Bruce is the Hulk, because he, without telling Bruce, he let him experiment on gamma radiation gamma radiation mixed with the super soldier serum, hoping that Bruce would come up with basically
like a second version.
Yeah, like the actual super serum, because they couldn't replicate it. But instead, Bruce accidentally became the Hulk. Woo! And then he hunts him down for like years. Like, that all takes place, I think, like 5 years before the Incredible Hulk even begins as a movie. And then he hunts him down and tries to kill him, and even puts his daughter's life at risk. Betty Ross, who Bruce is in love with, probably was, given the whole Natasha thing, which is weird. But yeah, so he's just like a bad person. And I'm not sure why they were like, you know who we should bring back as an Easter egg? General Ross. Like,
yeah, and working with him is a great idea.
Yes.
That has never gone badly for any of us before.
Great news. That's another reason why Bruce couldn't be in this movie, because it literally wouldn't have worked. There's no way Bruce would have at all entertained the notion of working with Ross. He would have been on Cap's side immediately. And I think probably so would have Thor, because, you know, Thor's like anti-government. I don't know.
Is he anti-government? He's like a king, right? Like,
yeah. He's anti-government that is not his own. He's on his own terms here. Also, they're just powerful, so there would have been no contest. Would have been hard for them to fight.
It's true. like you continue to say, they have to find a way to take Thor out, because otherwise Thor automatically wins.
Exactly. Yep.
Do you ever get tired of being right, Caitlin?
Never. I love being right. It's my favorite pastime.
God, what a Tony Stark thing to say.
I just have a question.
Go for it.
So Caitlin.
Yeah.
Should Steve Rogers have signed the Accords?
Oh man, we're about to really get into it here. I think that I think he should have signed, but after negotiating, like you said, certain things. Because I think the Accords as a general like thing are kind of smart, but I don't think, for example, like the government should have complete control over the superheroes. There needs to be checks and balances, as with any government. But I do think in the end, like the baseline, he should have signed. He shouldn't have been like, fuck the government, and like ollied out with Bucky like he did. But he did, so that's the movie we got. I know, Gabry, you probably disagree, but that's okay. Here, talk about it. I feel like it's good.
I don't entirely disagree. I mean, I disagree with the way literally everyone went about doing this.
Yeah.
It was stupid.
It's incredibly dumb.
Like I understand both sides. I understand why Steve wouldn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
I understand why it's important to, because otherwise more incidents like that could potentially happen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he has a very good point. Like, you can't take a week to decide to send people in if there's an emergency.
Yeah. Again, there needs to be some sort of, I keep using the term checks and balances, and I'm sure Casey is like, that's not the correct term. In law, we call it something. But,
no, I mean, is
that right? Okay, cool.
I don't think I'll actually disagree.
So yeah, checks and balances, because they're both right is the thing, and you can't just have one or the other in such black and white terms like this movie is trying to force. And I think it's really interesting that we don't get closure on it at all, really, because I mean, in Infinity War they don't really have time, and they kind of have to ignore the Accords in order to do anything. Like Tony certainly ignores the Accords in Infinity War.
Listen,
wouldn't you say so? Like,
he doesn't actually care about them.
I know, yeah. Which is, again,
he
like,
felt really guilty in that moment.
Yeah, it's so, oh my god. Zemo got lucky that all this happened at like the same time. He's like, oh, perfect. I can strike my time.
All of it makes so much sense to me, because like international law just is more like suggestions anyway. It's just
Yes. As a law student, speak on that a bit. Like, would this actually have like ever been able to work in real life, or is it like completely like impossible? Casey's like, no.
You have the authority to say this
based on your knowledge.
I mean, so here's what I'm thinking. One, could they agree to this? Sure, that could totally happen.
Yeah.
Could they have those kinds of like checks and balances, like you were saying, in terms of making something that like allowed for action but within limits? Sure. Also, the people doing it and people making agreements to it are largely, it's kind of like when America does things, like in terms of international law, like sure, they're operating under international law, air quotes,
quote, unquote.
Like,
okay,
really, like they do whatever they want.
Okay,
like that, and really,
that's
like,
basically what happened. Yeah,
and that's what they do, and they're going to forget all about the Accords, and they already have.
Okay,
like,
see, that's good. Yeah,
exactly what I would expect.
That's exactly what happened in Infinity War, basically, where they don't even approach them. There's no question. Like, whatever. Like, I'm just gonna do it because
there's something intergalactic emergency.
And then it's like, again, like going off of that, it's just so dumb that like Steve, the entire like how long passes between Civil War and Infinity War? In theory, like 3 years, right? Because they're going by. I think they typically tend to go by the real world's timeline. So 2015 versus 2018.
Okay.
So for 3 years, Steve they're not even really probably paying that much attention to the Accords anymore. Like, Tony, if he wanted to, could have been like, okay, I'm going to sort things out. But they're both like, we're in a divorce. We can't speak to each other. We're mad still, even though it's been 3 years. Come on, boys. Like, get over yourselves. And that's the Civil War, like the divorce.
Well, I was gonna say it's interesting, and this is my last thing, I promise, just an observation, which is that I think it's interesting that I guess no, never mind. Technically Nat's not an American, right?
Technically, yeah.
I think it's interesting that all the Avengers up until Wanda joins are Americans, but technically there are Americans, and then there's a Russian, a Sokovian, and then there's Thor, who's an alien.
And a robot with vision, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Was he born in the United States? I think he was.
Technically, yeah, so he's technically American.
Yeah.
Vision is an American citizen. Yeah. It's getting into whole other questions, like the question of can robots have citizenship? That'd be a whole other movie.
Yeah.
Civil War II.
Oh, God. But anyway, no, okay, my point doesn't
Casey's face right now, sorry. He's like
thinking.
You look like that gif of the woman with the like math over her face, like you're trying to figure out a particularly hard problem and you're not sure what's going on.
There's a legal writing competition which has this as the question, actually.
No way. So use this. You can quote us.
Oh God!
Don't quote us.
No, the reason I had brought it up was because I thought it was interesting that the Avengers, who are predominantly American, we'll say that, who are predominantly American, get sent out on worldwide missions.
True. Yeah.
Again, speaks to the whole Americans can do whatever they want. Like, should they? Probably not. But will they? Yes.
They will, of course. Yeah. That's a good point.
They say we need a worldwide Avengers thing, and I was like, I guess it's just the Avengers.
I know it's not going to happen or it probably won't happen because I feel like the MCU is so, what's the word, like structured maybe? Like this is the team and this is the team. But in the comics, they have a bunch of different like Avengers teams, right? They have the Avengers and the West Coast Avengers, and there's actually like a Midwest Avengers, I think, that's like a fake team. Yeah, whatever. And then there's like the Young Avengers. There's different like sects, obviously, and there's like X-Men. There's there's like 10 different versions of the X-Men. There's all these different teams, and I think it would be interesting to see something similar in the MCU where you have like the Avengers who work mainly in like America, and then you have the Avengers who work in space, and then you have the Avengers in Europe, and like then you have the Avengers in Africa, and like like all these different versions of the Avengers teams, but just working under the Avenger name, but in their own jurisdiction.
Because I think that was one of the huge issues.
Yes.
That was one of the big issues that precipitated the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fools.
It would just work better. And you could call in like Thor if you really need help. Like,
yeah, because he'll save the day. Well,
he'll make it work immediately. Okay. Is that it? I think that's it, right? You said?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh wait, hero questions. Duh. We were gonna do them for Tony, Steve, and Bucky?
Yeah.
Okay. I gotta pull them up. I usually try to
for the chart. Or
they're kind of related to the chart.
Okay.
They're like, because one of the things we talk about is like what actually makes them heroes. Like, are there things like we can qualify?
Yeah,
qualify.
Okay.
Make them more heroic than other things.
Okay.
Here's your introduction to the hero questions, Casey. Number 1, are they happy? So we'll do them. Let's just do them like not for each character, but each question for all the characters at once, right? Yeah. So. Tony. Is Tony happy in this movie?
He's angry.
Oh, yeah.
He's not okay. And he's also like, he broke up with Pepper, and that's like a whole mini thing. So he's not doing well because of that. He's guilty. He's angry. He's upset. He's just, it's Tony Stark's, what's that book? Like, No Good Bad Day.
No Good Bad Day.
Yeah. Is Steve happy? No.
I don't think I wouldn't say he was happy.
And neither is Bucky. This movie is miserable for like everyone across the board. Misery is their name. Question number 2. What do they sacrifice? So Tony, specifically, first of all, what does Tony sacrifice? It's weird because Tony's almost the villain because this is technically a Captain America movie.
Right.
And I don't know. He doesn't really sacrifice anything.
I think if you could look at it this way, him by suggesting that they sign these accords or bringing it up in the first place, he's sacrificing his autonomy in that regard.
That's true.
As Iron Man, which I will admit is a huge step for him, but again, I do not believe he really meant it.
Yeah.
Because again, he's also the one that brings up like we can change things after you sign them. So like again, like how much is he gonna commit?
And also in some ways seems like a hollow sacrifice. Like let's sign these accords and like because we need to have some oversight, but also I'm in charge.
Yeah. It was basically like so he could solidify his control and keep that control for himself while also appeasing his sense of guilt.
Yeah.
Okay. So he makes a hollow sacrifice, so he's not doing too well so far, guys.
He's pretending to sacrifice. Yeah. And then going right back to his old.
Yeah.
I don't think it's meaningless, but yeah.
Yeah. He's doing it for wrong reasons, maybe, in the long run. Can we put it that way?
Yeah, I think so.
Kind of. Okay. Okay, Steve. What does Steve sacrifice?
His friendship with Tony, his shield, his sense of stability, maybe.
Yeah.
Does he go on the run after this? I can't remember.
He does, yeah. He breaks out everyone on the raft, the prison, and then...
He's a criminal again.
Yeah. He's a criminal, basically. It's not the
first time he's been a criminal, by the way. He was a criminal in Winter Soldier as well, so...
True. But that was for a significantly shorter period of time.
That's true. But it's not like he's a stranger to it.
Yeah. And I almost wonder if a part of him was like, oh, it'll just kind of like all, come out in the wash like it did in Winter Soldier. Except this time it didn't.
Exactly that way.
Yeah. Okay. Bucky, right? What does Bucky sacrifice? We're still doing Bucky. Well, he makes, as we said in the ending, he makes a huge sacrifice by putting himself in the ice, choosing I have to protect everyone from myself.
So his life, in a way. Yeah. It's not a willing sacrifice, and it happened a long time ago, but his mind / his control.
Yes.
That's not like a contemporary sacrifice he's making, but it's very much present.
Yeah.
His character and his plums.
And his plums. He sacrificed the plums, which will forever go uneaten in his icebox.
Yes. Oh yeah, maybe he put them into his icebox.
Exactly.
Oh no!
It was foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3. What makes them a hero? So in this movie, what makes Tony Stark a hero?
He's not.
I'm sorry, Tony fans. I myself am a Tony fan, but he's not a hero in this movie at all, I don't think, which is sad. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Casey. I'll give him that he's trying to be. He is trying to do the right thing.
That's true.
He's being very misguided, though.
He is making an attempt to be a better person and to basically, check himself before he further wrecks other people. But
he's trying to do the right thing, but he's going about it in a very Tony way.
Yes, which
you should be someone.
That's the whole problem. Yeah, that is very true. Steve, what makes Steve a hero?
Steve a hero.
I like silence.
Is
that's funny.
Steve a hero?
I mean, he probably thinks he's a hero, and I'm sure he's a hero to Bucky.
Yeah.
Other people believe that he's a hero. Like Clint follows him immediately. Like, he's like,
Yeah.
Steve needs my help, so I'm not gonna even question this. I'm just gonna go for it.
Yeah, Cap. I mean, we were saying earlier how like Cap is being like a terrible friend to everyone else, like
Mhm.
a good friend to Bucky, and that's kind of like, in a way, that's kind of what makes, in a weird way, makes him a hero because like he's
True.
like trying to balance as best he can, and it's not an easy place to be.
Yeah. And I also think something about what you just said made me think of like we're judging all these characters on whether or not they're a hero based on their actions, but like, do other people believe that they're heroes? I think is something that is interesting to consider. Like Wanda, Clint, Ant-Man, like Scott, they all clearly believe in Steve like as a person and think that he's doing the right thing and that he is a hero, and think the opposite of Tony. But does that like make them right? Are they blinded by how much they love and trust Steve? I don't know. Like, what are their motivations for joining Steve's side? Is it just because it's Steve, or do they actually believe his position? I don't know.
That's a good question. I don't know, because that doesn't actually really
It doesn't come up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like at all. Um, I guess the most that we kind of get a hint at it or something similar is when like Natasha and Clint are fighting and they're like, we're still, or Nat says like, we're still friends, right? And he like is joking with her like, I forget what he says, depends on how hard you hit me.
Yeah.
And so clearly they're like still friends and they're like, oh, this is temporary. We're just like, it'll be fine after this.
Yeah, I like her compartmentalization, because I know that's
Yes.
something she does as like kind of a survival / work tactic, but
Yeah.
also like she knows it's not personal. Like,
Yeah. I mean, especially in the end, 'cause she chooses to like help Steve in the end. She's like, okay, well, this has gone on long enough. Go forth, Steve. Yeah. Oh, and then Bucky, right? So what makes Bucky a hero? This, I think, directly relates to his sacrifice, and also just like his sense of like, I think he says that once. It's when Steve says like, "Oh, you're always there for me, Bucky," or something like that. But Bucky's like, "Am I really like worth all of this, Steve? Like, I should probably just give myself, like, turn myself in." And I think that in itself is kind of heroic, even though he doesn't necessarily act on it. But he's willing to do so if it means saving other people, and I think that's important.
because he's very similar. He's a little bit similar to Nat in the fact that like there's this thing in his past that he really wants to make up for.
Yes. Yeah.
I think being willing to make amends, especially after something of that magnitude, is heroic.
Makes him a hero. Yeah. Hard agree.
I think he also just does not have a ton of choices until the end.
That's true.
That is true. He's kind of like just shuffled along by outside forces. I mean, the whole plums in the icebox, he was definitely going to go eat those. And then he's tiredly has to be like, oh my God, now there are people after me for something I didn't do. Like, what? And he just has to kind of fight them, and he's not at all understanding what's going on. He's a poor, poor man.
Let him rest
It's true.
in peace.
Aww.
I mean,
he blew away.
He did.
Okay.
All right.
Good talk, everyone. I will insert Amanda's clips as eloquently as I can. Well, next week is Spider-Man, I think, right?
Yeah, next time is Spider-Man.
Oh, man. So next week is Spider-Man. We know for sure that we're going to have Carly, right? Or no, Carly wanted to do Ragnarok. I tell a lie. It's your brother. Yeah, we have Gabry's brother, Ethan, who is great and also very funny. So he fits the vibe of the show.
He's snarky.
We only speak with funny people.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So that's it, right?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. So anyways, thanks for listening. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at AvengeGirls and on Facebook because we're posting there again. Because apparently people are actually viewing the feed. Yeah. We like ignored it because no one was interacting with us, and then people started viewing the page again, so now I guess we're doing it. We made the executive decision. And the Facebook page is the same. It's AvengeGirls and Friends. Also, leave us a review on iTunes or whatever if you like our stuff, because that makes us, be able to be seen by other people, I think. I'm not actually sure of the algorithm, but that is what I've heard. That if there are reviews on iTunes, you can... So. That's true. It also makes us want to keep going. Not that we're going to stop, but...
Yeah, you have no choice. We're going to keep
going. You're going to have to listen to us for the rest of your days. It's fine. Anyways, that's it. Thanks for listening.
And AvengeGirls out.
Man, we're so good at this outro thing.